Coming up on this episode of Strong Place.
But I can say, going through therapy and, having that cadence meeting with my therapist was a great help for me because she provided a lot of the clarity, a lot of the roadblocks that I was going through mentally. She was able to help me kind of hurdle those different things. She made me recognize that, Mario, you have to start doing things for you, if that makes sense, like determine what your success looked like. She said that's ultimately why your cup wasn't getting full the way you thought it would be, because that ultimately wasn't what you desired to do.
Welcome to another episode of Strong Place. I'm Io Johnson, Executive Director of Mental Health America of Central Carolinas, and today I have with me my distinguished guest, Mario King.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. With over 15 years of experience in the insurance industry, Mario King is a passionate, performance-driven sales leader and the owner of Ebullient Insurance Agency. I hope I said that right.
Yeah, you said it right. You said it right.
I've been messing with that. Ebullient Insurance is an independent firm dedicated to serving communities with quality and simplicity. He thrives on collaborating with and learning from other leaders in areas of growth mindset, clarity, discipline, and consistency, continually aiming to elevate his knowledge and service. His core values revolve around customer service and education. He believes these elements are essential to building trust and loyalty with clients while safeguarding their most important assets.
Absolutely, 100%. You said it well. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you. Reading the bios, although I love it, is always the most challenging thing for me because, I don't care how many times I rehearse it. It just does what it does.
It's hard talking about yourself sometimes.
Right. But sounds like you've had an impressive career in insurance, and we'll talk about that. And well, first I want to talk about your personal mental health story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think mental health is something that's been carried with us most of our lives. But I want to say post-COVID is when you really started to recognize it a little bit more often than not because the conversations will start to be had. Mm-hmm. So with my personal journey kind of coming up, that was something that just wasn't discussed, where I'm from. I think it was more so for men specifically, more of a shield to be strong, be the protector. Like those are things that you kind of left in the back of your mind and you was kind of isolated because some people saw it as being, weak in certain aspects. But, as I gotten older and kind of went through my own situations, you kind of learned that there's a fallacy in that. Mm-hmm. So post-COVID, when a lot of things was running parallel, what are you talking about? The economy, social economic issues, the things that was happening, police brutality, being isolated at home, that started to weigh on me personally. Like I'm comfortable being, isolated, working by myself, but long stints, you realize you need that, that interaction with people. Mm-hmm. So it became to be a drain on me, not knowing it offhand, but subconsciously, because I found myself like something ain't right. Like I'm not really myself today. Like I'm not enjoying the things I normally enjoy, or it's taking me longer to get to that place. Mm-hmm. So I started to say, okay, we got to try to find some things to work out. So you go to your comforts, the things that you do for comfort. But when that wasn't working, and then certain things started to happen as far as me losing loved ones within that process, I said, maybe I do need to go talk to somebody, outside of that. Mm-hmm. And in the midst of this, so a lot of things happened. So my father passed December 21. And after that, it's like a spiral, like a domino effect. Lost my grandmother. That's when I decided to leave corporate and strike out to be an entrepreneur. And that may not have been the best time, but I felt like you really know when your time is coming. And I just felt a sense of urgency to start doing the things that I always wanted to do, regardless of what the outcome could be, because I didn't want to live my life with regrets anymore. Right. So that's what prompted me to go ahead and start the Ebullient Insurance Agency. Now, in the midst of this, now I'm starting to see I'm battling my own mental health issues as it relates to, I don't know if it was depression or anxiety, but they had some of those things in it, because some people will say, well, maybe you're going through a midlife crisis. You left a great paying job in corporate. I started dropping from a lot of board positions because I just wasn't in it no more. Like I just didn't have that feeling.
Right.
But once I took that initial step to seek therapy, found me a therapist, started having conversations, she was able to pry and dig, and we were starting to get to the root of a lot of those things.
Right. Wow. So I didn't realize that we had a couple of those things in common. I lost my dad really suddenly in August of 2021. And then I lost my grandmother the following June. And I got that, when you start to kind of evaluate your life and you just think, what do I really want to do?
Absolutely.
I think when you begin to lose loved ones, it just makes you take stock, right? So you said something that I want to just talk about for a minute, that you started leaving board positions because you just weren't in it anymore. Do you feel like it was the grief compounded with just life, or as you were taking stock of what you really felt like you were called to do, those board positions weren't lining up anymore?
I think it's a culmination or a combination of it all, because I really honestly didn't have, I want to say, the time to grieve, because when I was there, I was still trying to manage the corporate job because I had responsibilities there. Then, I'm from Memphis, so my father, that's why I had to travel to work with that situation with my mom to make sure we were selling the house. They were separated at this point, so she was the only one kind of doing certain things. So I wanted to be there for her as well. So there's the guilt that weighs on you, that how long can I stay in Memphis, but I still got these responsibilities back in Charlotte.
Right.
And when this is really how it happened. So he passed Christmas Day. Christmas Day. So they couldn't have a lot of the things post his passing. They had to wait till after New Year's. So I came back to Charlotte, being dedicated, to the job to take care of that. Then I had to go back to Memphis for the funeral, which was over the weekend. So that's 2 or 3 days. Responsibilities, had to come back to Charlotte. Had a conversation with my employer at the time that wasn't the most pleasant, because they was telling me how much time I was taking off for bereavement. And that's when it finally kind of hit me. It's like, I don't need nobody kind of dictating how much time to grieve or to take in that essence. Right. So that's what prompted me to go ahead and strike out on my own. And that was weighing on me, because now you got the responsibility. You got a family. You say, okay, Mario, you're taking this big step. So it's not just you on this ride, you're taking people with you as well.
Right.
But I just felt like if I would have stayed at that time, I wasn't in a healthy space. So I chose me at that point, and I'm glad I did.
And, it's something interesting that you said, because around that time, I think it was like December 2021, I was also in that it's just time for me to choose me situation. And around that time, I was interim CEO for the company I was working for. I was living in Charlotte, but the company I worked for was in New Jersey. So I was commuting back and forth, and it was tough.
Training, yes.
Right. And I was supposed to take that job permanently. And sometimes you just got to choose you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And walk away from what people would think is your dream job. So I definitely get that. So you decide to choose you, and you strike out on your own and start your company. That's a whole different type of stress, right? That's a whole different type of mental health. That's a different space. What's that transition been like for you? You're 2.5 years in now?
Absolutely. Yeah.
How's it been?
It's been great. Of course, you have your peaks and valleys, especially with the way the economy is today, within the insurance industry in general. But I can say, going through therapy and, having that cadence meeting with my therapist was a great help for me, because she provided a lot of the clarity, a lot of the roadblocks that I was going through mentally. She was able to help me kind of hurdle those different things, putting practices in place as far as controls to kind of help put you back in the right frame of mind. My biggest thing is, success is relative, right? Everybody defined it differently, but I was living my life based on what other people thought of me as it relates to success. What they thought I should be doing, those are the things that I was doing. Even though I enjoyed those things, but she made me recognize that, Mario, you got to start doing things for you, if that makes sense, like determine what your success looked like. You said that's ultimately why your cup wasn't getting full the way you thought it would be, because that ultimately wasn't what you desired to do. So that's what I started to do.
So let's talk about that, right? That cup getting full. What is that? How do you define a full cup?
I think a full cup to me is when you go to bed, you rest your head at night, you feel like you're living within your purpose. So I went through this whole journey of like, what's my purpose? What is the things I'm supposed to be doing? Passion and purpose is two different things. You can have a passion about something, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's your purpose. And I read this book a long time ago called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And it's basically what it's about, you know, finding your personal legend, finding your purpose. But we fail to realize that you live your purpose each and every day. Absolutely. Like, it's not necessarily a thing that you seek. It's basically what's in your heart and what you do. So I tell people now, they say, what's your purpose? My purpose lies in my heart. And where your heart is, that's where you put your focus at. Whether it's spending time with kids, mentoring, or just helping people in general. That's your purpose. Make it better than what it was the day before. Or when you meet people, make sure you impact them in a way that they, you know, necessarily didn't think that you would impact them. So
right.
Those are the things I like to do now.
How does insurance line up with that?
Insurance to me is one of the best kept secrets because, again, that's another topic that we don't talk about specifically where we come from or where I come from, specifically talk about life insurance. And the way that I use that vehicle is generational wealth. Other cultures, other nationalities, other ethnic groups, they do it all the time. Whether it's real estate, insurance, those are your two vehicles to pass down that generational wealth. And I know you see it, social media, a lot of people having to GoFundMes for funerals and things of that nature. If you're going to spend your time insuring your home, insuring your car, insuring your other tangible objects that you got, I'm sure this equipment in here is insured. Why not insure your life at the same time?
Right.
Like, that's your most important asset. So you don't want to leave that burden. Like, when I went through that process with my father, transparency story, he had just retired in October, I want to say. And I was just having a conversation with him. I said, man, what you gonna do now? He said, man, I'm gonna just put my feet up and I'm gonna, you know, rest and chill. And he was starting to get on, because we was having a conversation about life insurance. So he was starting to get his stuff in order. When he passed on Christmas morning, he missed, you know, because when you leave corporate, there's a transition period before you can transfer your stuff over.
Right.
He missed it by like 6 days. So he had no coverage in place. So in essence, who does that fall upon? Whoever can afford to take care of those things. Those are the things that we have to stop doing. And I kind of felt guilty because here I was in the insurance industry.
Right.
And that situation happened with my father. So that's when I said, yeah, but along with other things, it's time to do something different. And education is the key. If you don't know, you don't know.
You don't know. Another similarity that we have, when my biological dad passes away very suddenly, and he was always really savvy with money. He would, you know, he was the one with good credit, and we, you know, are from New York, so he lived in it's like south of Atlanta at that time, and he had retired a few years prior. He had a condo that he had bought in Harlem, and when he bought it when they were being built, and so when he sold it, he made a significant amount of money for it, did some investments, and so, you know, just, you know, pretty financially savvy. He owned another townhome in Atlanta. He had moved from Dallas into like Noonan, wherever, parts of Georgia. But when my bonus mom calls us, she's like, he didn't have any insurance. And I'm like, who? Like, I was stunned. But he had cash. And so there was definitely enough to pay for his funeral. And I think I understood her point. Like, I paid for this funeral. I drained everything that we have, you know, the little bit that we had stored up. So it was a difficult situation. And me being the oldest girl, she was looking for me to help her navigate. You know, she made some decisions that, you know, my siblings and I didn't necessarily agree with. And when you said GoFundMe, it just hit me. That, I think, can add to, like, the stress of navigating the loss of a loved one when everybody has different financial values.
Correct.
And so it definitely took a toll. So yeah, she put the GoFundMe up and was able, to get the funeral covered. You feel like,
yeah, you feel a certain way.
like your family's business is like out there, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it don't stop there, because you have to take care of any debt. And if they don't leave any will or trust, now you have to go through the whole probate period. Like it's a hassle, it's a stress.
Yep.
And with me not physically being in Memphis, a lot of that was kind of left on my mom to do. And then you feel that guilt. So you have to pick. It was a whirlwind for me.
Yeah.
However, even though we're still kind of going through that transition period, even today, we just had a conversation, about it between me and my mom, and that's a never-ending thing. So again, my thing now is just to make sure we don't be in that position.
Right.
Again, and I don't know why that topic don't come up. I think people just don't like to recognize death until it comes. We don't like to talk about it.
Right.
But those are conversations that we need to have.
Right. And oftentimes, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't really start thinking about it until you fall ill.
Correct.
And then I think it's harder to get insured, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the best time to get insured
and young,
the best
healthy.
time to get insured is when you're healthy, before
them premiums go tear you up.
Right. And exactly like you said, when you're younger. Do you have siblings?
Yes, I do.
Where do you fall in the birth order?
I'm the baby. I'm the baby. Yeah.
So the baby usually doesn't have to worry about the family stuff, right?
Yeah. But
was that the case for you?
I had to worry about it. I don't know. Maybe that's just who I am. I've always kind of been that way, or looked upon, as that way. So I have no issue with it. However, like when we was talking about the mental health part of it, when you're always the strong one, or people always depend on you, like, who do you go to in your time? Like, it's almost like the Superman thing. You can't be Superman 24/7. So that's when I had to tap out. Like, okay, I need a little help here.
Okay.
And
let's talk about being the strong one, right? Podcast is called Strong Place. What's your definition of strong, and do you feel like it's a positive or a negative, if we can call ourselves or consider ourselves strong?
Yeah, I would say pre-post COVID, or pre-post my mental health journey, I had different definitions. So COVID or pre my mental health journey, I define strong as somebody who was, steadfast, more of your stereotypical, male role leader, that type of situation. We don't have time to express our feelings because we got to get things done. That's how I perceived it at first. However, I learned to lie within that. It's okay to be open. It's okay to be vulnerable. That's strength within itself. Recognizing that you do have weaknesses. We don't have to have this shield and put on this face 24/7 to show how strong we are. Whether you represent your family or the community that you serve, it's okay. Being vulnerable is not a weakness. Now, you don't want to do it all day. That's not something you want to do, but you should be comfortable enough to have a circle of people around you that you can open up and be vulnerable to. Say, hey, man, I'm struggling right here, or I'm struggling today. It's okay to say that.
Right.
Necessarily, maybe 5 years ago, I wouldn't have thought that same way.
Right.
I didn't understand it. You don't understand something until you go through it.
Ooh.
Like when people used to talk about mental health or have depression or like, how could that happen? Like, that's yourself. You're supposed to love yourself. I can never comprehend it. But God got a funny way of turning things back around on you. He made you go through that journey, and now you have a different level of respect and understanding and empathy for things like that.
Yeah. I think the Bible said his strength is made perfect in our weakness.
Absolutely.
I love that pre and post definition that you talked about in terms of what strong means to you, because I think we all have that like pivotal moment in our life that there's some things that are like pre this or pre that. Like I think a lot of times right now, maybe 15, 20 years ago, it would have been pre 9/11, post 9/11. Now it's like pre-pandemic, post-pandemic.
Absolutely.
Even in the nonprofit space, a lot of things are like, oh, this was what we did before the pandemic. This is what we do after. So I want to talk a little bit about that corporate career, because I'd love to just talk to people about how, being rising and going up that corporate ladder, and people from the outside looking in think like, oh, you have this great job, you have a great title, you have a great home, you have a great car, you have a great salary, whatever, right? People, I think, tend to equate with success, and a lot of times we tie that to our corporate position or what we do for a living. Did corporate America ever encourage you to take care of your mental health?
I think, again, pre and post COVID, those conversations were starting to be had a little bit more, and they was offering, things as part of your benefits package, like you have free counseling sessions and things of that nature, because eventually they started to recognize it.
Right.
But to your point about corporate has been great for me. Like I tell people all the time, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Corporate America is not for everybody. Like if you do corporate and it works for you, it works for you. It was great for me. It allowed me to be able to step out, on my own. It allowed me to afford certain things in my life that I like to do. So if I had to go back, I'll go back. I have no quarrels with it. It's just at that particular time, it just wasn't the perfect fit anymore for me.
Okay.
But I think that conversation, like I said, is starting to be had a little bit more. So they're starting to have therapists on deck. They're starting to sign contracts with third parties for employees who struggle with mental health. And they're starting to give you days for that. Like you have sick days. They're starting to do mental health days that you can have. They have different groups that you can get involved in. So I think they are making a conceited effort to try to strengthen the what's going on. Because you got to look at this next generation that's coming up that had to grow through the pandemic, missing high school. Like I still think the ultimate effects, we still haven't seen it just yet.
Yeah.
Because something still feels not right, you know. But I think as time goes along, we'll see what impact it really have on us.
Do you miss corporate America?
I miss it in certain aspects. I'll probably say I miss the people.
Okay.
Well, you definitely miss the consistency when it comes to
consistent paycheck.
Exactly. And sometimes, in corporate America, you could take your foot off the gas, but when you're an entrepreneur, you 24/7. You always on. Like you can control your time. Well, sometimes you can, but yeah, sometimes I do miss it. But I just look at the end goal. Like, what am I ultimately looking to do?
Right.
So you have to sacrifice some things to get to where you want to go. So I'm fine with it. Okay.
All right. So you start Ebullient. What year did you start Ebullient?
Ebullient, really, it was something that I was 24. I started playing around with the idea, I want to say in 2020, but it was after my dad passed. So around 2022 is when I officially started to put some things in order.
Okay. What has this part of your journey now professionally taught you in terms of entrepreneurship? And I don't know if you lead a team of people or if you're a solopreneur, but what do you feel like this part of your journey has you in this space?
It's taught me about myself, resilience. It teaches you the true definition of what a leader represents. What does that really mean? Organization. What do you value? How do you value your time? It teaches you how to delegate, not just in a business space, but in your life as well. Where are you spending your time when you're not working? Are you perfecting your craft, or are you wasting time doing something else? It taught me the value of rest. You have to have adequate rest, exercise, like all these different things that you should be doing on a normal basis. But when you're out there on the road by yourself, or if you're leading people, you have to take care of yourself. Your health is your wealth. And before, I probably wouldn't have put it in those same type of terms. So I think it's all about the balance. I'm getting a little bit more balance in my life, not saying that I'm perfect and everything is how it should be,
right? But
I'm getting there. And it's an exciting journey. No 2 days are alike. You have your peaks, you have your lows, but your mental health is where it starts. If you are strong in that area, you can tend to perform a little bit better. But when you have your down days, like now, if I have a down day, I accept it, I embrace it, but I don't let it linger.
Right.
Because I know, my today is not going to be like the yesterday, or it's not going to be like tomorrow either. So it's two important things that I learned within this journey: equanimity and impermanence. So equanimity is just the place of treating things on equal value, not letting it impact me or sway me, whether good or bad, just stand in this even keel place.
Right.
And impermanence is like nothing is permanent. So you could be going through something today, but tomorrow, the sun still go come up. So that's been my guiding grace for me.
Mm-hmm. One of my passions is men's mental health, and you touched on it when we first started talking. What do you think are some ways that the community as a whole, but then also women specifically, can support men in your mental health?
Oh, so great question. I think everything stems around just the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
A quick, hey, how you doing?
Okay.
You know, I think sometimes men just have to feel comfortable enough to be open and vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Like the name of the show, you have to have that safe space
Mm-hmm.
or that safe place. And I think once a man finds it, he'll be open, he'll be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think just a basic conversation is where it kind of starts. It could be a simple, you may not even know the brother, say, hey, brother, how you doing today? And it may spark something within him. He may not tell you, but he may say, oh, I met this lady. She asked me how I'm doing. Let me go home, tell my old lady or wife or whoever, you with. I feel better today. Let's talk. Spark the conversation. That's what you
just
do.
Conversation.
Absolutely.
So you
Absolutely.
Men just want to know that someone cares about how you're doing.
100%. 100%.
Okay.
100%. Because I think naturally we have this complex where we feel like we have to be the problem solver for everything.
Mm.
So sometimes it's good to have somebody solve your problems when you're dealing with it personally.
What would you say are the top 3 things that men go through or weigh men down? Because I think a lot of women, we make assumptions as to what it is, and we don't really know.
Absolutely.
What are those top 3 things? I think you touched on one of them, which is I guess that having to take care of your family,
Absolutely,
right? And balancing out responsibilities. Mm-hmm. What are like some other things?
I think that's the main one, that provider, and that's provided not just financially,
Mm-hmm.
But making sure your family is whole as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a huge layer when it comes to men. I also feel like another space, we just kind of just talked about it, being comfortable enough to have an open environment where you can kind of discuss your issues and problems.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we bottle things within, or we may talk amongst it with our brothers or our circle of men and have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But those 2 things to me, I think is some of the key triggers that impacts us, whether good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
Provider complex. Am I providing at the right clip for my family? Or if I'm not, how is that making me feel? I feel less of a man because I'm not being able to provide in a way that my family deserves. So we kind of internalize it. We may not tell our spouse that, but it eats at us. I don't know if it's ego or what it is,
Mm-hmm.
but it eats at you. However, on the flip side, if you have a relationship where you're open to be vulnerable, that your wife or girlfriend, whatever, may tell you,
Mm-hmm.
it's okay. I don't need you to be that. You're great at X, Y, Z. So I think we always need that pep talk, to they call it stroking the ego.
Right.
You don't got to do it too much, but just show appreciation, like appreciation.
Right.
So I think that's a third layer.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you was to be a fly on the wall and you sit in a conversation full of men, appreciation comes up probably 75% of the time. Like, man, I don't need much. I just want to feel appreciated. I just want to feel like I'm doing a job well done.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm cutting the yard, just say, oh, you did that. It's just the simple stuff.
Okay.
In my opinion, that's what I say.
At what point do you think that men make this shift to lean on a woman that's not their mom anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I have an adult son, and I was just thinking about this yesterday, that he really doesn't call me for a lot. And, and as a mom, you just still, I don't care how old your kids get, you're just still going to worry about them, and they're going to still be your baby. Mm-hmm. And so even though I'm thankful that he, he's a grown man and he's doing his thing, but I still wonder, like,
when does that switch come on?
Yeah, I'm like, where'd my baby boy go? You don't call me, he doesn't need me. Like, so when is that? Yeah, when is that?
I think it's different.
Happen?
I think it's different for different people. So with me specifically, I was kind of mama's boy growing up.
Mm-hmm.
But once I hit 16, 17, I don't want to say it was a shift, but I started to be a little bit more independent. And honestly, it was the values that she instilled in me that allowed me to be confident enough to do that.
Okay.
Because again, I don't know if it's just a man complex where I figured out. Like if I went to college and I was in a rut, or if I ain't had no money, I ain't always called back home. I just tried to figure it out because that's how I was raised. So I felt like that's what I was supposed to be doing. But as you get older, you start to revert back. Then you start calling mom again. So I think it's just a different for different people. But for me, it was around 16, 17. When you go through adolescence, you hang with your friends more.
Right.
You get girlfriends, and you may start talking to them about things you used to talk to your mom about.
Right.
But
Okay.
she
That
did a
enlightened
good,
me.
yeah.
It definitely enlightened me because my son, my daughter, completely different.
Yeah.
My daughter needs something. Mom,
She called it.
like
Yep.
she gonna be on that phone so fast.
Absolutely.
I call it my mom's spidey sense. My little spidey sense has to go off and be like, something going on with my son. Let me pick up this phone.
But that's a fact, because when something's going on with me, my mom always will pick up the phone and call. I don't know if it's a keen sense that y'all got, but it's definitely true.
Yeah, it must be. Like I can almost tell every time. I literally know. With both my kids, but I feel like it has to kick in more with my son because he's not gonna reach out.
He's not gonna reach out. Yeah, you got to be the proactive one.
Let's talk a little bit about like your work in the community. You seem like you have a lot of wisdom. Do you mentor young men or boys? Do you do any type of community work?
Yeah, absolutely. I always feel like wherever I live, work, and play, I try to impact it in, some type of way. And, whether that's given time, but I'm a part of the 100 Black Men of Greater Charlotte. And that's one of my passions. I always wanted to do when I was coming up is wanted to transfer knowledge, because a lot of times we don't always have that. You may see the talented 10th always leave the community and not necessarily come back. I felt like if I was ever going to be part of that group, I never wanted to be perceived or looked upon that way. Because I feel like when you gain something, it's your duty to share it with that next generation. I think real leaders coach and develop future leaders. So I kind of live my life that way. And through mentorship, that's one of the vehicles that, I decide to do that. So outside of that, I do get involved in the community, whether it's whatever organization is doing something as it relates to economic balance, talking about different ways that we talk about this word diversity, but what does that really mean? It's all about fair opportunity, things of that nature. How can you make a community better? How can you make the people that you live and work with better? So that's how I kind of live my life. And then vice versa. I feed off people too. Like even through mentorship, I feed off the youth. I feed off the kids. I like to know how their brains thinking, what are they looking to do? They could teach me something different as well. So it's always that exchange of energy that I'm looking for.
You said about the vice versa, and I've been wanting to just ask men in general this: who do you look for? Like, I feel like sometimes men don't look to older men for guidance. And I don't know why. Maybe it's that ego thing that you were talking about. Do you have a mentor? Do you have someone that, when you're trying to figure things out and you need a male perspective that you call?
Yeah, well, and here's the thing, and that's a great question. I think the generation was just different because I felt like the generations before me just didn't want to share that knowledge. I reached out sometime. I didn't feel that hand, reaching back out. So that created, I don't want to say resentment. So that created a type of isolation. It was like, well, all I could do is reach out. If you ain't trying to reach out, I can still get it on my own. And I'm not the only one who kind of felt that way. So that's why, that was another reason why I said I wanted to be a mentor, because I just felt like the generation before you they have a duty to kind of help you navigate certain waters. So to answer your question, who I see counsel through now, I have a good circle of friends that I consider family, where we're able to be open and we're around the same age group. So that's where I kind of find my peace, find my place. And it could be as simple as we just kind of meet up, go grab some food, and let's talk what you're going through, brother. Like, how can I help you, and things of that nature. And that's healthy. And I'd recommend everybody to have it. But I wish that I did have an older mentor that I could seek counsel with. It may be my uncles, but I don't talk to them on a continuous, basis. And you want a mentor that's kind of in the similar things that you do or what you're aspiring to do,
Right.
you do need that. So
Right.
still looking for it. We'll get there.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad that you use what you feel like maybe you're missing and identify that younger men need that.
Absolutely.
Right. And changing that course. And I think maybe just generationally, men's thought process on that is different. My stepdad, he's 80 something, 81, 80, I think it's 81 or 82 next week. And you know, with his sons, it's like, man up, figure it out.
Absolutely.
But if one of us call, one of the girls call,
Soft.
right, it's what you need. You know what I mean? He's helping figure it out. Like, and so I just think maybe the generations think differently when it comes to men nurturing other men.
Absolutely. And this younger generation, they think totally different than when I was coming up. Like I'm a first generation millennial, right?
Okay.
So but this next crop of millennials see the world so different than I did. And they challenge me, you know, to think different. I don't agree with a lot of things, just like they don't agree with some of the things that how we used to think. So it's going to be interesting these next 10 years.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like the older millennials are definitely different than younger ones.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Yeah. My younger brother is an older millennial, and even though him and my kids are technically in the same generation,
it's different.
Their thought process can be really different. So if you had to leave like one parting thing with our audience today, what would it be?
Get the help you need. Like, make sure that you're taking care of your mental health in whatever aspect you decide to do it. If it's therapy, if it's counsel, trust me, it pays dividends. Like I mentioned, your health is wealth, and it starts with your mental. Don't be afraid. Like, don't consider it or look at it as a means of weakness. When you are not feeling your best, it's okay to tell somebody that because that can be the thing that saves your life. So that's what I'll leave with.
Okay. Yeah. And tell the audience where they can find you on social media.
All right. So you can look me up on social media. The most social media that I do is on LinkedIn, and you could just simply look up my name, Mario D. King. And that's where you'll find all my information about myself, also Ebullient Insurance as well. And I'll make sure that you are able to contact me. I'm an open book, so if you got questions, don't hesitate to reach out. So I feel like we're all here to transfer wealth, knowledge, and I'm just one of those people. So use me as a vehicle if you need to. But it's been fun. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. I really appreciate you coming on
Absolutely.
Place today. And I really enjoyed our conversation.
Same.
And I appreciate your vulnerability and your transparency.
Oh, thank you. Now it's time to eat.
I'm Maya Johnson, and thank you for joining another episode of Strong Place.